Hey, welcome to the Two Player Podcast. I'm Paul Tassi,
I'm Erik Kain.
and today we're going to be talking about episode 3 of The Walking Dead, and I do not remember the name of it.
It's Monsters.
Monsters. Okay, gotcha. I guess that's an appropriate title for every episode of The Walking Dead.
Pretty much, right?
We've been extremely negative about this season, and well, I don't know if there's anything to like rave about this episode. I wasn't like quite as down on this episode.
Yeah.
Mainly because I guess, not that much happened, period. So there wasn't like all that much to be mad about. But I don't know. I found some interesting things with it, some goofy things. But what did you think?
I'm just glad that son of a bitch Erik is dead.
Yeah, Erik, man.
He was always like doing stuff and saying things and being there in the show. Like, what's that?
You know when a character like that gets, more than 5 lines in one episode, you're like, well,
They're dead. Yep.
So long.
That was kind of a weird scene. Okay, there was 2 things about that scene where he like takes him off. First of all, like he takes him to this tree and it's like, okay. Then he just wants him to leave and go back and fight. It's like, no, you should help him because he's gonna die. Like, why wouldn't you help if your wife had been shot in the stomach, would you leave her laying against a tree, or would you like try to like
yeah, I feel like that would have to take priority. I mean, I feel like if he had maybe used some medical supplies or something more than like wrap a coat around it,
Yeah.
I could have bought that a little more. But like otherwise, I feel like you're taking a car and like piecing out.
Yeah. Sorry,
and just going
like,
back.
what-
But I guess I don't know. I guess other people were injured and like they really had to push through and get to Rick, or else Rick was going to be screwed.
No.
Although I didn't realize they were in the same place
Until this episode.
until the very
I
end.
know.
When I heard, and I'm like, oh, okay. I guess that makes. I don't think that was supposed to be a surprise. That was just not really.
It was. We were supposed to
explained.
know somehow, but no, we
Yeah.
didn't. They never explained it. Here's
Yeah.
okay. Before I keep talking about that scene, I just want to ask a question. I'm going to paint the picture here. You've got a force of attacking Rickians. They've got the saviors pinned in this courtyard, apparently, though obviously not, since they can leave and go inside the building too. But for whatever reason, they're trying to fight them in the courtyard. And then Morales calls the saviors and that are in the courtyard because he found Rick, and they all leave the courtyard to go fight Rick. Like, no one stays to fight the guys in the courtyard? I'm so confused.
I couldn't understand who Morales was calling. Was he calling
The guys in the courtyard.
or was he calling someone else?
The courtyard. I mean, it had to be because
Oh.
they came running. Suddenly, they all left the courtyard and went running inside. And it's like, wait, okay, so they all left the courtyard to go inside to get Rick and just leave all the other guys outside?
I guess if Morales told them it was Rick, then Rick's such a valuable bounty, maybe that was priority. And plus, the courtyard battle was kind of lost already, maybe.
But it just
So they're
doesn't
like
make
kind of retreat / help. I don't know. I mean, that didn't stand out to me, but yeah, now that you're saying that, I can see that.
But wouldn't they have to like still fight the people that are fighting them in the courtyard? I mean,
if they're retreating back to the building, which is like behind them, maybe
then they'd have to at least fight them to keep them from coming in the building, right? You can't just leave the doorway. Like,
I don't.
there's no sense. There's no rhyme or reason to any of that was going on.
Well, it was hard to process at the time because I didn't understand they were like that was the same location, so that didn't really register at the time. But now looking back, yeah, it doesn't make a whole ton of sense. Like, I literally need someone to draw this out on like a map.
Yeah, seriously.
Which is not the sign of a good action sequence when you have to draw something out like that.
Right. If you have no scope and you have no like sense of place or timing or whatever, it becomes very difficult to like become attached to the actual action that's going on.
Yeah.
But back to the Aaron Erik scene. Were you having a hard time watching Aaron pretend cry? Because I was having a hard time with his face.
I actually thought Aaron did pretty good.
It just went on and 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 on, and not a single teardrop fell.
It was a little over the top, but I thought it was. To me, it stood out because I thought it was kind of better than most other emotional moments on the show, like with other people doing something similar. I thought, but
Andrea.
but then that's what I mean is like, but then juxtaposed to the rest of the show, it almost felt out of place.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, Aaron's like doing a pretty good job here, but It doesn't really fit with what everything else that's going on.
You know what
But
I think could have saved it is if he wasn't so emotional the first time. If it was like, oh, you're gonna be fine. Like if they had both been like, oh, it's okay. It's not terrible. I'm feeling okay. Like it's just a flesh wound,
yeah, right.
like that sort of thing. Like, and he was like, okay, cool. Well, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go help. And then when he came back and he found him a zombie, then he
We're
had the big
crying.
emotional. But because there was all of it, just it felt really kind of too much for me.
I as soon as he laid him down by the tree, I'm like he's gonna be a walker later. Like it's not even
Yeah.
like a question. So that wasn't the biggest surprise to me. Um,
What was the biggest
I don't know.
surprise to you in this
Um,
episode?
that I'm the biggest like surprise is more of a general concept, not like a moment. And maybe well, I'll get back to that later. But generally speaking, I'm surprised with how kind of somewhat interested I am in this whole kind of split that's going on between Rick's group, where there was a couple scenes with Daryl where there seems to be kind of a real schism building where Rick's trying to like kind of maintain some semblance of like honor and being true to his word, and Daryl's just straight up executing people.
Yeah.
Like the biggest surprise, I guess, was probably Morales just instantly dying,
Yeah, what a stupid
which
plot, but it was
was almost
gratifying.
like it was almost funny how fast that happened, and like it shouldn't have been funny, but the way it was set up, it was funny.
It was. I
Um,
really actually liked Daryl for doing that because it kind of like cut away the terrible melodrama that was happening. And
well, it
Rick's
also
like,
served a purpose because it proved Morales's point
yeah,
exactly that Daryl didn't even hesitate, and then Rick makes sure he's like, "Did you know who that was?" And Daryl's like, "Yeah, I knew,
yeah.
whatever."
He's like, it doesn't
And
matter.
then, but it was even it then it I did say it was even escalated at the end, where it's like it's one thing if Daryl crossbows a dude that has a gun on Rick. It's like okay, but then the dude at the end, Minkus, um, that's the actor who played Minkus in whatever the thing is, who comes out and he's unarmed and he's like, "Oh, I'll give you information. Like, just let me go." And Rick's like, "Okay, you have my word." Blah blah blah. And then after Daryl just shoots him,
Yeah.
like unarmed with his hands up. I'm like, "Wait, let me. All right, we're like crossing the line into like war crimes here." Like that's a little. I don't know, and I think it's kind of an interesting dichotomy. And like, I think you have a lot of people on team like murder everyone, like Tara and Morgan, and then you're starting to see this other side of like Maggie and Jesus and maybe Rick even, where it's like, all right, well, maybe we should not be exactly like the saviors, if not worse.
Worse,
So
the
I think
saviors
that is
are always taking prisoners all the time.
that's true. Yeah,
I mean, and letting
they've
people
taken a
go.
fair
And
amount of prisoners to the point, and then all of them have escaped or been released over time.
Mhm.
And that's kind of been a problem with this whole Rick versus Negan setup to begin with. Is you can trace it all the way back to the start when this war was started because Rick's group like killed I don't know a dozen of
Oh, at
Negan's
least
men, and then like Glenn and Abraham get executed. But it's like, yeah, that's almost kind of fair.
it's not even
That's
fair.
well, right. It's
It's
not even
still
balancing the
tilted
scales.
towards. Yeah, I
And
mean,
I guess the way in which it was done was like so brutal and like, oh, they were prisoners. But now Daryl's pretty much doing the same thing. I mean,
well, Rick's
people who are
group killed
captured
them
with
in
their
their
hands up.
sleep. Remember? Do you remember that scene
Yeah,
with
that
Glenn
was
like
also
shoving a
that was a
knife
low
into the
point.
dude's heart? Like they were doing things that were equally bad, if not worse, than anything the Saviors did. And still, like, and then really, if there's any lesson to be learned from any of this, it's that you shouldn't take prisoners. That Negan should have just killed them all, because now they're coming back and killing all his people. Like far from living in peace, far from like, and they're taking the war to him, and he should have just killed them all in the first place. He wouldn't have had this problem, you
Yep. In
know?
retrospect, hindsight's
Yeah.
2020, and well, that's the thing about Negan is like the show's doing a bad job of portraying Negan in like anything resembling a positive light, but he's actually not that bad of a leader. I mean, he does really dumb, like awful stuff periodically, like beating people with a bat or having a harem of wives or throwing the doctor in the furnace.
Yeah.
Like his overall kind of philosophy of governing is like not to just wipe out rival communities, but to integrate them. Like that's not actually at its core a bad idea. That's probably what they should be doing. And I think Rick is maybe slowly starting to realize that. But I don't know. I'm really looking. I want a real split. I want like Daryl and Rick to like actually kind
Yeah.
of square off at some point. And like we saw this in a minor way with Morgan and Jesus and their kind of goofy woods kung fu fight.
I kind of
But
liked
like
that fight. I thought it
it
was.
was it was okay.
At least it was like an interesting fight. I mean, it was, of course, it was silly ninja stuff, but like, they were pretty evenly matched and they were kicking and flipping around and it was fun. I also thought the
Yeah,
shootout in the building was pretty fun, like with Rick and Daryl and the guys attacking. Like, at least they were running out of ammo and having to think a little bit, and there was like things happening.
yeah, with the fire extinguisher with the smoke, and then like that
Yeah.
was like a video game where it's like, all right, you're gonna
Yeah, it was like, yeah.
use the fire extinguisher to create a smoke screen, and then knife the dudes when they get close, and
Yeah.
that was good. It was, I mean, it was overall more coherent than last week's kind of nonstop firefight, and I also like the close where like Ezekiel is so excited that they didn't lose any men, and then some dude just like opens fire with
Oh,
the
God.
LMG that Rick never found
Yeah.
from wherever that is. I don't even know where they are, but some other outposts. And I'm like, well, you tried.
Okay, so I think that Ezekiel did almost the stupidest possible thing in that day of fighting. Like telling your people that no one is going to die is so unbelievably stupid because the moment somebody dies, your whole leadership schema is undermined. Like the
I think
moment,
Ezekiel just has like an unrealistic port. I think he's lost in this like king character to the point where I don't really think he even understands how war is going to go. And I think he thinks he can do it, like not losing people. And I think this will kind of shatter his perceptions of the whole thing.
yeah, yeah. I mean that makes sense. I just still can't believe that he would say that. And then of course, the moment he says that, you know what's going to happen too.
He jinxed it.
Yeah, I mean, the moment you say that sort of thing, like all your people are going to get killed.
Yeah.
They actually, that was the one area where they actually kind of plotted it out in an intelligent way. Like Rick and Daryl don't find the guns, and then the dude's like, "Oh yeah, we moved them to this other outpost," and then they cut to the other outpost, and it's like, oh shit, like at least there was some sort of like
I
build
didn't
up
actually
from
make that
one.
connection until just now as I was saying that out loud.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
But that is
yeah,
kind of smart, actually. Yes.
it's just, but it's not even smart. It's just normal. Like I feel like we're like a
It's
normal
coherence.
show would do this, but they would have done it from like the first episode where like we would have been building towards this. Like right at the beginning, we would have known like, okay, Rick's going to go for the guns, and like these guns are really important, and they're at this place. We have the intelligence, like dialogue that leads to us understanding what everyone's doing, and then it all sort of falls into place over the course of 3 episodes or whatever. But instead, it's been so hard to follow every single
They just
like.
needed like 10 more minutes of scenes, kind of like setting this up and putting it in
Uh-huh.
context, and I think it would have been better. But yeah.
Yeah, but why are but according to fans of the show, it's we're just stupid that we can't follow this. Like that's what it all boils down to.
I mean,
Just
if you're literally reading like a 12 paragraph Reddit post, like explaining exactly the
yeah,
breakdown of each battle, that's probably means the show is not doing a great
yeah.
job of conveying, the facts on the ground.
Generally speaking, that is a problem with the TV show if it's not just going through the basic narrative. I don't know. It's so strange. This is the strangest season of The Walking Dead yet.
I think it wants to be like a really long movie. Like I think we're just gonna keep leaping into kind of the same moments. Like I think we're gonna open on whatever's happening with Ezekiel's people. I mean, we have to cut back to Negan at some point, I would imagine.
Yeah, maybe.
I didn't watch the previews, but because that's kind of important. But I think they're gonna stretch. I think they're doing the exact opposite of what they did last season, and they're trying to
Yeah.
make this burst of episodes kind of really exciting, and then maybe they'll slow down a little bit. But I mean, the whole season, I think the war, quote unquote, is going to be resolved by the end of this season. I don't think they're going to drag it into kind of the next season like they did with the Woodbury War, where they just pretty much
Probably good.
doubled how long that war was supposed to take.
Do you know?
So,
Do you know what we need though? Is more inspirational speeches.
oh man, I'm so done with inspirational
We
speeches.
need to, no, but,
Just
but we need them so that we can stop the fun action bits and cut back to the inspirational speech, and then cut back to the action, and then cut back to the
we
speech.
need dialogue. We don't need inspirational speeches, especially from Ezekiel.
Oh
I'm
my
like way
god,
over
not enough.
Ezekiel's.
And yet she smiles.
Uh,
You know what? He has taken
that's
number one for me. He is more annoying than Negan now, and by I mean I never thought I could say
he's
that.
too wacky. He's just too wacky. And like I get that it's a bit, like I understand the context of it in this world, but it's just annoying. Like it doesn't make it less
Yeah.
annoying just because I know why he's doing it. Um,
It is too
yeah,
much. You know, like I could understand playing the king, but to do it in such florid Shakespearean, it is too much. And also the writing for it is just not terribly good. I mean,
it's
it's
kind of
just
hard to write
silly.
that in a way that
It is
didn't
hard to write
sound
that. Yeah.
totally goofy. But I don't know. I remember thinking that in the comic too. I'm like, there's a tiger now. I'm like, I don't know. This is weird.
Yeah. You know, if he just said like fewer things, maybe it would work.
Yeah,
You
but they're
know,
giving him a lot of screen time. So
like, and if he quoted things, maybe, you know, screw your courage to the sticky place or whatever the fuck, or be bloody bold and resolute. You know, maybe a
yeah,
little bit of that, but mostly just more normal, you know, more toned down. I don't know. Like, it also, I just don't think they need to be giving speeches in this show. And no one is giving a good speech. Has
I'll
there
give
been,
you like one a season,
yeah, maybe one speech,
one
like,
every 8 episodes, maybe. Not
but
like
yeah,
three an episode, which is what we're getting right now.
yeah. Okay, here's the other thing. You know what I do think that the conflict, like you were saying, the conflict that's arising between characters is good. I like that, like Jesus is pushing to have the prisoners taken, but other characters are doubtful. I do think it's a tough choice because I don't know what I would do in that situation. I mean, it'd be pretty hard to just kill a bunch of people who surrendered in cold blood. You know, like
It's
that would be
tough.
tough.
I
But
mean,
but
because it's
bringing
such a
them
case by
back,
case basis. Like that clearly crazy dude who Morgan is like itching to kill,
oh yeah, he should be dead.
who murdered that kid. Like he probably should be executed. But the dude who was surrendering, who got yelled at by the woman last episode that Daryl killed, like that dude
Yeah.
didn't need to die. They could have just imprisoned him or taken him back or something.
Well, yeah, he would have
And
made a fine like ally. Honestly, he could have come on over to the good guy's side just fine.
yeah, and so I don't know. I think they've always been kind of extreme like throughout this war from the beginning, but now they're almost even pushing it to new levels.
Hmm.
Like I get that it's war and all's fair and war and whatever, but it's I don't know. It's like Fear the Walking Dead where it's like now we're watching the bad guys. It's like the main
Hmm.
characters. But I think that's something that Rick himself is starting to wrestle with. And like he didn't say anything to Daryl, but he was like
Well,
clearly
yeah,
being like, WTF, mate? Like, what are you
yeah,
doing?
yeah. No, I
And I
agree,
have to
and I like
imagine
that.
that'll bubble over at some point.
Hmm.
But it is kind of weird, like who's on what side now. Like Tara's like this big proponent of murdering everyone, and
Yeah,
Morgan, who was so peaceful for so long, is like back to being crazy and wanting to murder everyone.
yeah.
And I don't know where Carol is anymore, but she went through that big
She's
transition
smiling
too.
with Ezekiel.
I don't know what
She just can't wait to jump his bones. I think.
I think
Uh,
they're definitely. I think they're setting that up.
yeah,
Because in the comic, like Michonne and Ezekiel have a relationship, but that's clearly not going to happen. So I think
yeah.
someone's going to have a relationship with him, and it's going to be Carol. But I don't know. I'm
The
not a fan of that just because I don't want to hear more King talking.
oh my god, I know.
But
Yeah, especially like whatever like romantic sex talk he would give in his Shakespearean
well, the
stupid.
only hope is that maybe if they're just alone together, he'll kind of drop the act and be normal. But because he's done that with her before. But
Yeah. Maybe he'll, you know, my hope is that he'll drop the act after this terrible tragedy, that he'll like be
it'd
shocked
be a
out of
good jumping
his,
off point.
it would be, where he just is like, okay, like this isn't working. Obviously, like I've been a fool and I'm going
Yeah,
to just
I'm
be
not.
myself
I'm
now.
not going to imagine that happens, but I wish it did.
Yeah. Well, that's my big hope for like the next stage of this show. They're bringing back the prisoners to Hilltop, and we know that there's been a food shortage. So my question is how they're going to guard and feed all these. I mean, they took like 2 dozen prisoners, maybe not 2 dozen, but close to. Some of them got killed, but by the zombies. That was pretty
Yeah.
crazy scene. I liked that scene actually. They were like biting into their heads and
I
stuff.
liked when they were coming down the hill and they
Yeah, that
just
was cool.
fell over. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
that actually makes sense because zombies probably wouldn't be coordinated enough to go down a slope like that.
yeah. It was
But it
like
actually was good because it made them be like right on top of them instantly. Because,
yeah. That
but
was a good part. See, now see that's the thing. Like there were some good moments in this episode.
yeah, there was. Yeah, there
It
was.
was they weren't. It was definitely not even I would say half of the episode, but the moments that were good stood out, and I think that credit where it's due. Um, so and then Rick took the baby. I think we should talk about this. Rick took the baby at the end and gave it to Aaron,
Yes.
baby Gracie. So you wrote about this. You wrote about a fan theory. that I don't like this fan theory, but I think you might be right.
I don't like it either. It just seems too on the nose for me. And the theory,
Yeah.
for those who haven't heard it, is that somewhere along the course of this war, Judith, the 3-year-old or whatever she is going to die, probably by accident. And then these are the scenes where we see Rick kind of red-eyed and mourning at a grave, because like who else would make him that upset, I guess. And
Carl.
Coral or Michonne maybe, but and then the idea is that the little girl we see in the ultra future flashback is not Judith, but it's Gracie, who has been raised essentially by Rick in place of Judas. With I would this is where it seems weird to me. I'm like, would you really just replace your dead daughter with like a new daughter who's
Yeah.
someone else, like who's someone else's kid who you murdered? Like that seems weird to me. But like thematically, I think it would make sense, and that could be like a big turning point with Rick, where it's like, oh well, this war is the worst. We need peace. We need mercy. Blah blah blah. Um, and then like in the comics, Judith died a long time ago, like years and years and years ago. So I don't think that's a spoiler, because the show has just kind of done all these different things with kids. Like Sophia survives in the comics and is still alive in the comics, which obviously didn't happen on the show. So
Right.
I don't think that means anything, but I don't know why else those future flash forwards kind of exist. Unless there's some other thing where like it's like a Rick fever dream and he's hallucinating some sort of vision before he dies or something. But I don't know. I feel like that would be kind of weird if that actually came to pass. And then he gave the kid to Aaron, and I would imagine Aaron should probably raise him, like after losing Erik and like having something to care for. That makes more sense to me than him
Definitely.
doing it, like anybody else doing it. But the fact remains that um, the kid is in the camp now, so the kid will probably grow up in the camp and be a kid in the future if we jump forward. So that is the basis for the theory starting. So we'll see.
I mean that's, and then there's the theory, of course, about Father Gabriel being a mole, and that, because I will say this, I didn't think much of it at first, but the longer that they hold off going back to that scene, the more I think it's the case.
There was a line in this episode. I don't remember who said it or in what context, but it was something about, maybe it was the guy at the end who said something about how like Negan knew everything or something.
Yeah.
Like Negan already knew everything.
Uh-huh.
And
Something about, yeah, I remember that.
that could be a reference to that, except I don't understand of how if Negan knew everything, he allowed his entire base to be destroyed. That doesn't like
Yeah.
if Negan, I still don't think the theory works. If he was so far ahead of the game, like why is he just getting the floor swept with him?
Yeah,
That doesn't make
it's
sense to
true.
me.
That's a good point. Unless like they, he maybe wasn't able to get him the information fast enough, or maybe that this is all part of his plan. Like,
I mean, the only thing I can think of is like if the group shows up back at home now and like Negan is just completely taken over Alexandria or something,
yeah,
which I don't think will happen because I mean, literally, last we saw them, their entire base was just being overrun by walkers. So I don't think they're in any position to go do that. But I mean, maybe
well, we've seen the good guys get out of a similar pickle before,
yes,
so
many times over, I
many
guess.
times. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's tough to say, but there. I mean, this show has pulled tricks on us before, so I wouldn't be surprised. I really think that one that one I like better than the Gracie becoming Judith thing, because that is very
I
on the
just don't.
nose and very
Yeah, I don't
just,
like that,
yeah.
but I also don't really like the Father Gabriel thing.
And I
I
don't
don't
like
like
either one
Father.
of
I
them
don't
that
like Father
much.
Gabriel as a character, and he's another character where I think they've just jerked him around too much.
Yeah,
And like, oh, he's a coward. Oh, he's brave. Oh, maybe he's a traitor. Like, he's not that interesting to be doing this much stuff with him.
yeah. No, he's really not. He's not a good character at all. Yeah. Well, what's your predictions for next week?
I have to imagine we're cutting back to Negan. It's been two full episodes, so I would think
Yeah.
that I think we'll figure out the exact aftermath of what's going on with Ezekiel. Maybe some debates about the prisoners. I don't know. I will say so far I'm liking the beginning of the season more than the beginning of last season, which was
Yeah.
just the worst when they just
It was
separated the
terrible.
whole cast. And like they're doing that a little here. Like we haven't really seen Carl and Negan's been gone now, but it's a lot better than what they were doing last season. We're like, here's a kingdom episode, here's a hilltop episode, here's a seaside episode. It's definitely
Well,
better than that.
This is an interesting point because so one of the reasons that they separate the cast like that, and they don't say this, but one of the reasons is because of budget. It's cheaper to film an episode with Tara in it and hardly anybody else because you're not paying too many actors for that episode. But here's what's going on now. Like they still have the same about $2.7 million budget per episode that they had in season 2. But we have episodes with how many characters are in them? And there's so many actors on screen. I mean, including extras, but also, smaller parts and main characters. And so, I mean, pretty much they have to leave some people out because they don't have the budget to have everybody in the. I mean, this is a good time to start killing off characters because honestly, this show cannot. I don't see how it can be a good show on the budget it has, on the time frame it has. I mean, frankly, with the leadership it has, but with all these constraints and have so many characters.
I guess the answer might be that some of the lesser characters I don't imagine are making a lot of money. Like I think Rick and Daryl negotiated their contracts and they were getting like 90,000 an episode, and now they're getting like 500,000 an episode or something.
Are they really getting 500? Well, if they're getting 500,000 an episode,
they might
each,
be eating up. I'd have to double check that. It's at least a couple 100,000. I know that.
Well, 90 is very low for what for the ratings. I mean, frankly, the budget's extremely low for the ratings that this show gets. And I have a little sympathy for the people trying to make it on that shoestring budget. And also for the actors who, frankly, should be earning more than they are. If you compare them to other shows with actors making far more than that. I mean, most of the main cast of Game of Thrones is making 500. I mean, Jaime, Cersei, Jon Snow, Daenerys, they're all making
they're also 8-episode, 10-episode seasons.
Right.
And
they have a $10 million budget too.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel the budget crunch as heavily lately. Like it was so obvious back in season 2, and it's like we're going to be on Herschel's farm for 15 episodes because that's all we can afford.
But I think you can see where they're skimming still. Like they're skimming in the details.
The only place I really noticed the skimming was when last year when we had the CGI deer and the CGI trash mound, things like that. That's when it's really. And
Jadis's hair.
Know. You might be right about the actor thing, but I hadn't really considered that.
I think it's a number of factors, honestly. I think I just think that's part of the issue right now is that they really have a lot of people on screen, and I feel like that's causing other things to be kind of left behind. And then last season, I think that's probably partly why they did so much breaking up of the cast too. Why we didn't see Maggie, but for 2 or 3 episodes the whole season, It's just, I don't know. So this all kind of comes back to, I'd really like to go back to a smaller group of characters having their adventure. That's what I really hope for, but I know we're not going to get that.
Don't think so. Not shaping up that way.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week with more Walking Dead, and be sure to catch our Forbes podcast if you're interested in video games. That's the Overworld podcast, and so we'll link to that. All right. Peace.